Kirtan if I came a little late. Well done, well done. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama. I see some faces here this evening that weren't here midday. Too bad. I mean, no, excuse me. I'll do a little review. Wasn't it good? That was a good review. It was very short. We gave a little background on the place of Sri Brahma Samhita in the bigger picture of the Vedas and the different topics that are discussed in Sri Brahma Samhita. Maybe you've seen the book. It's a little skinny book, 62 verses that summarizes the entire 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, not all the topics in Srimad Bhagavatam are there, but sutra-like messages. And what inspired this particular topic was because of the 150th anniversary of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's appearance, which was this past Thursday. And in honor of Bhakti Siddhanta, I thought this very important book we should spend a little bit of time with, at least the introduction and then verse 1. There's a particular importance to verse 1. We'll hear both today, this evening, and tomorrow midday. Here's a nice photograph of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Of course, you all know he's the Diksha Guru of our founder Acharya in ISKCON. And by his instruction and his inspiration, the Hare Krishna movement exists all around the world. Of course, Srila Prabhupada was the order carrier, but the order giver was Bhakti Siddhanta. We'll recite together his pranam mantras. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshavanavi Devi Dayataya Krapabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhuryojvala Premadhya Shri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatadine Rupanuga Viruddha Apasidhanta Dvanta Hadine. So our respects to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who gave us so many wonderful things. Now, the place where Sri Brahma Samhita was discovered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was during the course of his South India tour, and the place was the Adi Keshava temple And we're going to get a tour of the Adikeshava temple. Here's the front steps leading to the entrance. Of course, the temple is not just in that building. This is the entrance. And the same building from a side view. And then there's a more modern, updated, cleaned up, painted, nicer looking Adikeshava temple on the bank of the Payasvini River, Tiruvattar. And the deity inside, this is not the deity, this is a drawing or a painting or a figure of the deity, Shri Ampu in the front, and the personality of Godhead, Vishnu, reclining on Anantashesh. Now this does not show Lord Brahma. This shows Mahavishnu, and there's apparently the deity himself, where he's the source of Lord Brahma, growing on the lotus from his navel. Here's the inside of the courtyard of the temple some years ago. And as you see that long corridor on the left side, there's what it looks like from the inside. And there's what it looked like when we went there for our yatra. We went to this place and had discussion about Adikeshava and Lord Chaitanya's South India tour and Sri Brahma Samhita. Nice place. If you remember from those who attended the morning session, there was a little recording of Srila Prabhupada's voice reading from Sri Brahma Samhita. The part he was reading from was a purport of Brahma Samhita text 28. It says 5.28 because this is chapter 5 of, this is part 5 of a 100-part Sri Brahma Samhita. In the Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur purport, it reads, Brahma, by dint of his searching self-consciousness, became well acquainted with the ocean of truth. All of the truths of the Vedas were revealed to him, and with the help of those essences of the Vedas, he offered this hymn to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Sriman Mahaprabhu has taught this hymn to his favorite disciples, inasmuch as it fully contains all transcendental truths regarding the Vaishnava philosophy. Readers are requested to study and try to enter into the spirit of, it should be this hymn, with great care and attention as a regular daily function. Now, I know some devotees that when they're doing their puja in the morning, they recite Srimad Bhagavatam. They recite it again, exactly what is indicated here. It's a regular daily function, at least the Sri Brahma Samhita prayers, the Govinda prayers specifically, because this verse 28 precedes where the prayers begin. They're nice verses to learn, and then, as Prabhupada writes here, to enter into the spirit of this hymn. And Srila Prabhupada makes reference to this also in the whole story of Gajendra Moksha. You know the Gajendra Moksha story. King Indradumna made a mistake, inadvertent mistake. He was absorbed in meditation after having given up his kingdom to his son. And a sage, Angira, what was the sage's name? Agastya. You pretty sure? You're really sure? Okay, good for you. Agastya. He didn't greet him, didn't receive him because he was in meditation. He was in trance of meditation. So he became angry and I curse you. You're like an animal. You can't even receive a sadhu properly. You should become an elephant. And sure enough, he became an elephant. He became the king of elephants. There's a whole bunch of she-elephants in the background. And one day, when bathing, an alligator started chomping on his leg. They had a big fight. Days and days and days went on, and neither was winning. But because the crocodile was in his, or alligator was in his own element, he wasn't getting weaker, and the elephant was getting weaker. And he realized, finished. So he reached with his trunk for a lotus flower, and he began offering prayers that he had learned as a king. Somehow, although he's in the body of an elephant, he remembered the stotras that he recited as a king. And as he was reciting those stotras, sure enough, Lord Vishnu came. And not only he came, he had his Sudarshan chakra handy. And with that Sudarshan chakra, he chopped the chomping part of the alligator or crocodile and severed the head of the crocodile from the rest of its body. In this way, Gajendra was rescued. And with his lotus in his trunk, he offered prayers. And then from the body of the crocodile or alligator came a Gandharva, because he had been cursed to become a crocodile, and so forth and so on. It's a very nice story. You see in the background there's Lord Shiva and various devas witnessing this wonderful event. And in Srila Prabhupada's purport, he writes about the stotras that one recites daily, entering into the spirit of the stotras. This is the verse, and then there's Prabhupada's purport. Thereafter the king of elephants, Gajendra, even while in the grips of the crocodile's jaws, fixed his mind in his heart with perfect intelligence and chanted a mantra which he had learned in his previous birth as Indradyumna, and which he remembered by the grace of Krishna. Super Soul is the source of both remembrance and forgetfulness, and knowledge too. Prabhupada's purport. Gajendra was formerly King Indradyumna, and somehow or other, in his next life, he became king of the elephants. When Gajendra was in danger, and although he was in a body other than a human being, he remembered the stotra he had chanted in his previous life. Yatate cha tato bhuya samsiddhau kuru nandana. To enable one to achieve perfection, Krishna gives one the chance to remember him again. That's from the purport. And he goes on, same purport. It is imperative, therefore, notice the word imperative, that all devotees in Krishna consciousness practice chanting some mantra. Certainly one should chant the Hare Krishna mantra, which is the Maha Mantra or great mantra, and also one should practice chanting, this is from Brahma Samhita, Chintamani Prakara Sadmasu, or the Nrsimha Stotra, Ito Nrsimha Parato Nrsimho Yato Yato Yamin Tato Nrsimha, big letters. Every devotee should practice in order to chant some mantra perfectly, so that even though he may be imperfect in spiritual consciousness in this life, in his next life he will not forget Krishna consciousness, even if he becomes an animal. Of course, a devotee should try to perfect his Krishna consciousness in this life, for simply by understanding Krishna and his instructions, after giving up this body, one can return back home, back to Godhead. So there's merit, more than there's merit. It's imperative. Some prayer, and our temples, we have daily prayers. Some of you don't live in the temple, but you should have daily prayers that you recite with feeling, reverence, and attention, sometimes Prabhupada says, or entering into the spirit of the hymn. So here's the first verse. We can say together. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. And the translation by Bhaktisiddhanta. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the Supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin. And he is the prime cause of all causes. So I'm going to introduce a terminology that is Jiva Goswami's terminology. This verse is called a Paribhasha Sutra. Sutra, you know. And Pari means around, and Bhasha means language or speech, just like commentary. It's grammatically different, but it's Bhasya. It's commentary. Govinda Bhasya, the commentary on a book. So, and Paribhasha means to speak fully, or to explain, or to define. These are little definitions. And what's a Paribhasha Sutra anyway? So here's some language. It's taken from Jiva Goswami's commentary on this verse. His commentary on this verse is many pages long, something like 20 pages long. It's an important verse. So we're only going to spend 2 classes. It is said the Paribhasha is a regulatory statement which produces a definition where otherwise there is none. The Paribhasha is stated once in the text and is not repeated. Thus, millions of statements are regulated by this one statement. Therefore, the statement is not figurative, but rather it is skillful in creating harmonious meaning to all contrary statements. One should not think that because it is a Paribhasha Sutra, it is applicable only to this text. No. One should not worry that it is a figurative statement in all cases, since the sutra is dedicated to the highest entity and makes known the meaning of Bhagavan. So it's a governing statement, generally found in the beginning of some literature, that expresses the essence of that literature. Meaning, since it comes at the beginning, supposing there's a number of verses that come later and later and later, to ensure that you have the proper understanding of those later and later verses, it must match 100% with the Paribhasha Sutra, because it governs. And it gives the key, the clue, the essence. Let's do a little quiz, all learned devotees. Raise your hand if you know the answer. What is the Paribhasha Sutra of the 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam? I see 1 hand. I see 4 hands. Go ahead. Get slower, please. Okay. What does it mean? The verse comes in, here's the verse. Ete changsa kala pungsa krishnasto bhagavan sayam Indrari vyakulam lokam mridayanti yuge yuge. So it comes in chapter 3 of Canto 1. And in the beginning of Canto 1, chapter 3, it's the beginning of an answer to one of the 6 questions of the sages of Naimisharanya. The one of the 6 questions is, "Oh, Sutta, please identify the incarnations of the Lord, the avatars of the Lord as they appear in this world, the forms of the Lord as they appear in this world." It's a long answer because there's many, 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 and he gives explanations. There's many, many. And in that list, Krishna and Balaram are in the list of incarnations. And then comes this verse that says, of all these incarnations, Krishna is the source of all the incarnations. The Supreme Godhead. He's the one from whom all others come. Although he's one of the ones who come. Does that sound like a contradiction? Does anybody hear a contradiction? He's one of the incarnations, but he's the source of the incarnations. Is that a contradiction? Sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? How does it work? A devotee in China, just on the way over here, was sending me a text message about this. Not exactly this. So there's all these forms of the Lord are eternal. It's not once upon a time Lord Krishna said, "Gee, I'd like a brother," and he manifested Balaram. And Balaram said, "You know what? I think I'd like 4 assistants." Boom, there's 4 assistants. And the 4, it's not a chronological event. It's an ontological reality that there's an original, although the others from the original are also eternal. They're within Krishna, within everything. Krishna, everything is within Krishna, and Krishna is within everything. That's a contradiction. Sounds like, but it's not. So, the avatars, as chapter 3 explains, there's the Purusha avatars, Mahavishnu, Garbhadaksha Vishnu, Kshirodaksha Vishnu, and the Vishnu forms. Sometimes it says Garbhadaksha, sometimes it says Kshirodaksha, sometimes it says Mahavishnu, but Vishnu manifests forms in this world because the function of Vishnu is creation. And when creation comes, Vishnu arranges for avatars or expansions of him to come. One of those expansions is Krishna. And then he circles around and says, although Krishna is an expansion of Vishnu, he's the origin even of Vishnu, because he's the cause of all causes, sarva karana karanam. Here's a very simple way of understanding this. We're all seated in this nice house. Did we exist before we were sitting in this nice house? Of course we did. And Krishna is eternal. He's the source of everything. He came through the door. Vishnu. He existed before Vishnu existed, or he's the source of Vishnu, not chronologically before, but ontologically. And then he appeared as an avatar of Vishnu, but he's the source of all. And that's the Paribhasa Sutra of Srimad Bhagavatam, which means all the other verses of the Bhagavatam are governed by that. If you get another understanding somewhere down the road, you have to correct the understanding. It has to match the governing principle. Clear? The function of a Paribhasa Sutra. Okay. Got another quiz question. Oh, learned devotees. One of the most important literatures of the followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami. And I'll clue you, there is a Paribhasha Sutra for Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or Nectar Devotion? Let me see a show of hands. Who knows what that governing verse or Paribhasha Sutra is for the entire Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu? I see one hand. I see two hands. I see 2.5 hands. I see 3 hands. 4 hands. Okay. Would you like to know what it is? We're going to call on one of the learned Prabhus here in the room who can recite it. Yes, you. Yes, you. No, you want to say it together? Say it together. It's okay. What's the verse? Say the verse. Say it together. Okay. Because this verse is a definition of what bhakti is and what bhakti isn't. Because a good definition says what something is and what said something isn't. When Prabhupada came, here's a nice example. When Prabhupada came to America, he had 14 rupees. Didn't have cartels. He didn't have mridanga. Didn't have harmonium. He had Krishna consciousness. Now, at some point, some devotees went to India, and Prabhupada asked them to get a mridanga. Now, how do you tell somebody what a mridanga is if they've never seen one? So he made a drawing, and then he also explained, mridanga is a drum that has 2 heads, because at that time they were using bongo drums. But it's not like this, it's like this. And one of the heads is bigger, and the other head is smaller. But there's other kind. There's coals that are wooden. This is clay. It's not wooden. It's clay. And so you say what it is and say what it isn't. They came back with a mridanga because he had a good definition. Because a good definition is both inclusive and exclusive. It's just a principle of communication. And so this verse communicates what bhakti isn't and what bhakti is. And the whole of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is a Sindhu. It's an ocean of the nectar devotion. And this is the governing verse or Paribhasha Sutra of the whole text. So similarly, this first verse of Sri Brahma Samhita, which covers so many topics, which you heard how many topics were discussed in the morning session, Prabhupada writes in a Chaitanya Charitamrita purport, so many topics. And it's the governing principle of all of them. Everyone is controlling something, so this is Ishvara Parama, but at the same time being controlled by somebody else. But is there such a thing as someone that isn't controlled by someone else? Krishna. Ishvara Parama. Krishna. Krishna is controlling everyone, but he's not controlled by anyone. That's the first line. And, for example, Lord Brahma, he is the creator, but he's empowered to create by Krishna. If he didn't get the power to create from Krishna, couldn't create. You can't walk across the room if you don't have empowerment from Krishna to walk across the room. You got legs, but if they don't work, you can't walk across the room to do anything. The various demigods, after the creation of Brahma, there's demigods that control, but the demigods that control can't control without Krishna. And therefore, they're governed by Krishna or his expansion Vishnu to do what they do. So therefore, the demigods are engaged in Vishnu worship or Krishna worship because he's the Ishvara Parama. The advent of Krishna is the result of the demigods going to the shore of the milk ocean, offering prayers to Krishna, to Kshirodakshai Vishnu in the ocean of milk, to appear in this world because the demons have gotten too strong, causing too much trouble. So they're dependent upon the independent. So the demigods worship Krishna, Brahma worships Krishna, Indra worships Krishna, as in the Govardhan Leela. In the Brahma Vimohan Leela, Lord Brahma is offering his prayers to Krishna after he tested the power, the limit of Krishna's power, and he realized there's no limit. Ishvara Parama Krishna. We're just going through the first line. We'll go through much more. There's 2 classes to cover this. Satchit Ananda Vigraha. His Vigraha, or his form, has these 3 features: eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Satchit Ananda. And that which is created is not Sat. It's Asat. It appears, and after some time, it disappears. The elements may come and go. The forms may come and go. But the form of Krishna may manifest, but it's the eternal form. And full of knowledge. We could, contrast forms of this world are not inherently full of knowledge. They're inherently full of some other things. And Ananda. So here's a little graphic to show. Little fellow down the left, contemplating eternity. Satchit Ananda. And then the third line, Anadir, he has no beginning, but he's the beginning of everything. Anadir, Adir, and before the name was Krishna, now it's specifically Govinda. So this is a very nice painting of Garbhodaksha Vishnu with Lakshmi at his feet, reclining on Anantashesh, and Lord Brahma appearing from the navel of Garbhodaksha Vishnu on top of that nice lotus. Nice painting. But specifically, this is Govinda, of all the names, because the names indicate his qualities and activities. And Govinda is particularly, he gives pleasure to the cows and he gives pleasures to the senses. And so therefore he appeared as the son of Nanda Maharaj and performed his childhood pastimes as Govinda. He's very fond of cows, and the cows are very fond of him. And Sarva Karana Karanam. He's the cause, the Karana of all Karanas. Sarva Karana Karanam. The painting is taken from, it's meant to illustrate a section of, not just a verse, but a whole section of the Bhagavatam. Down at the bottom is Vyas, and Vyas is meditating upon the appearance of Krishna in the prison house of Kamsa. But that Krishna, who is the prison house of Kamsa, is an avatar of Vishnu, who is pictured here. And then that avatar of Vishnu, who is pictured here, has his origin in the spiritual world. So people that don't understand the big picture of Srimad Bhagavatam can get confused. Because there's this picture that looks different than that picture, looks different than the other picture. So will the real Krishna please stand up? And they're all correct. They're all correct if one understands the Paribhasa Sutra. He's the source of all incarnations. That's the Bhagavatam Paribhasa Sutra. So on the right, there's the 12 Leela avatars. And on the left, there's Vishnu reclining on Anantashesh, and from him so many avatars, which are described in Canto 1, Chapter 3. And this first verse, Paribhasa Sutra, is giving us information about Krishna's position. Now, what we're going to be discussing tomorrow is the abode of Krishna, the form of Krishna, the associates of Krishna, the activities of Krishna. But the fundamental part is, who is he? And because those other topics are in Srimad Bhagavatam, they make their way into Sri Brahma Samhita. Now, in Jiva Goswami's Mangala Charana, did I read them his Mangala Charana? Yes? No? Maybe? Hello? No. Okay. He makes comment in his Mangala Charana that this book is difficult to understand, and reading Bhaktisiddhanta's language makes it more difficult to understand. But he says, Jiva Goswami writes in his Mangala Charana that there are commentaries that make it easier to understand. Apparently, before Jiva Goswami, he must have had a good library, because I don't know of any commentaries before his on Sri Brahma Samhita, but from the commentaries it makes it easier to understand. And he, Jiva Goswami, has given in his lengthy commentary on the whole Sri Brahma Samhita just a synopsis, which he says more is being presented in Krishna Sandarbha. So a little bit about Jiva Goswami. Who's Jiva Goswami? Jiva Goswami is one of the 6 Goswamis. They're most important associates amongst the many, many important associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he wrote extensively on Srimad Bhagavatam. Extensively. And one of those extensive commentaries on Srimad Bhagavatam was the Sandarbhas. It's practically, it's magnus opus. It's this big composition. 6 parts. One of those 6 parts is Krishna Sandarbha. And in Krishna Sandarbha, he writes in his Mangala Charana to Sri Brahma Samhita, I'll expand this synopsis presentation from Sri Brahma Samhita further in Krishna Sandarbha. So in going through some of the persons here probably newer, and this is 301 and I'm still at 101. It's good to get even if you're newer, it's good to get an idea that we have acharyas that we're following that are in the transcendental plane. We may not understand everything that they write or that they speak. Prabhupada made a comment more than once. When I would hear Bhaktisiddhanta speak, my brain was puzzled. You've heard that expression before from Prabhupada about Bhaktisiddhanta. Although my brain was puzzled, I would sit and listen. Now, why do you sit and listen if your brain is puzzled? Because he knew that the sound vibration was purifying. And if the brain is puzzled, it just means we have to get the signal and the transmitter of the signal in sync, the receiver and the signal transmitter in sync. So you hear and you hear and you keep getting refinement from that process of hearing. And eventually, oh, that's what he was saying. Just a couple little anecdotal things, and I'll stop for this evening. One devotee I know took very seriously undertaking the study of Sri Brahma Samhita. It was Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Now, some of you at least know who he is. Some of you may know more than who he is. You may know him in a personal way. He was writing a commentary on Sri Brahma Samhita. It never got published, but I have a copy, a digital copy. And my work in trying to understand Sri Brahma Samhita, as Prabhupada said we should hear regularly and try to understand from different angles of vision. He, along with his manuscript, he gave a class in Mayapur in 2013 and in Vrindavan in 2014. I attended both. I've listened to the recordings of both 10 times. And I think I have a better understanding of Sri Brahma Samhita than I did before I attended his class and read his manuscript and heard the recordings 10 times. So if you, just like Prabhupada said, when, maybe Div, you remember, when Nectar of Devotion was published, it was a surprise because Prabhupada wanted to focus on Srimad Bhagavatam. We understood. He wanted to complete Srimad Bhagavatam. But in the midst of Srimad Bhagavatam, there were other publications. And one of those other publications was Nectar of Devotion. So the program was every morning Bhagavatam class, every evening Bhagavad Gita class, and when Nectar Devotion came out, he wanted us to have Nectar Devotion class right after lunch. 3 classes a day. You know, it was intense and it was lovely. And then devotees had so many questions about what is this and what's that. Prabhupada's his reply, if you read something from Nectar of Devotion and you don't understand, read it again. And after reading it again, you don't understand, read it again. And after, because people would just send him letters of, what's this and what's that. Just keep reading it again and again, and eventually you understand. Eventually can be at a different time frame for different individuals in the Hare Krishna movement. But the principle is it's purifying because the sound vibration is a transcendental sound vibration. So Sri Brahma Samhita is a little bit like that. And I've been living with it for some time. I'm slowly moving on a project to take seminars that I've given on the topic of Sri Brahma Samhita, have them transcribed and extensive editing and make it into a publication that's readable and understandable for, Hare Krishna Prabhus, although the subject matter is really high. And I enjoy it. And I it's a service to the instruction of our founder Acharya, etc. Bhakti Siddhanta and Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote his commentary in Bengali, Jiva Goswami in his in Sanskrit. How many times in Srimad Bhagavatam, I don't know the number, is Sri Brahma Samhita quoted, verses or texts or parts of Sri Brahma Samhita? Hundreds. 500, 600, 700. It's an important text. So we're going to hear part 2 of the introductory verse, the Paribhasa Sutra, tomorrow. Stay tuned. I hope to see you. And if you're not there, it'll be recorded. You can try it again later. Because it's really good to try. If you can't understand, hear it again. If you can't understand, hear it again. I'm going slowly. There's nothing that I've presented so far is mind-bending. But it's a picture of Krishna. It's a treatise about Krishna. So let's say some of you know the verse. We'll go show the verse again. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So there's the first verse. We'll hear more tomorrow. Discussion. Hey, there he is. He's intimidating you, waving the microphone that he wants you to say something. You're very patient, right?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So what is the...
Slowly. He's a fast talker. I gotta put the brake pedal on before he goes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. What is the essence of Krishna Sandarbha?
The essence of?
Krishna Sandarbha by
Krishna
Jiva
Sandarbha.
Goswami. Is a message in
The essence of Krishna Sandarbha, because Krishna Sandarbha comes after Bhagavat Sandarbha. So amongst the forms of Bhagavan, there's a special position of Krishna amongst the forms of Bhagavan. So that's the treatise. What's special about Krishna amongst the forms of Bhagavan? It's a big book. Yes.
Maharaj, I've read in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya that the transcendental sound vibrations from Krishna's flute entered Brahma's ears and came out of his mouth as the Gayatri.
Yes.
And I also read in a separate section that the gopis use those Gayatri mantras to worship Krishna.
Wait a minute.
I'm not the same ones.
You're asking or you're making a statement?
I remember reading that they use those mantras.
Really? Where'd you read that? I've never read that.
I think in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya.
Really?
Yeah.
Show me. The reason I'm speaking like this is because Gayatri is not for Vaishyas. And the gopis are Vaishyas. They're not Brahmanas. They certainly heard Krishna's flute. But Gayatri mantra, I'd like to show me the place or indicate the place or something.
Okay.
Now, the principle of Lord Brahma hearing Krishna's flute, first of all, that's pretty transcendental. Because when Brahma heard Krishna's flute, there was darkness in all directions only. There wasn't flutes. There wasn't anything. There wasn't anything. A lotus flower and darkness in all directions. He heard splashing. There's this description. He heard the splashing of waves below. And he put two and two together and said, down below there's some waves. Although it's not material waves, it's the ocean of Garbhodakshay Vishnu. So, and then he put 4 plus 4 and got 8. If I climb down this stem, I'm going to find out where I came from. He climbed down the stem and he couldn't find the end to the stem because that's an ordinary kind of a stem. So he climbed back up and he heard tapa, tapa. So the tapasya, austerity, was the chanting of a mantra. He received 2 Gayatri mantras. You know this? Oh, okay. Some of you may not know this. The first of the 2 Gayatri mantras he received was from Saraswati. Question. What? That's his wife. Answer. This is the primordial goddess of fortune, Saraswati, not the demigoddess Saraswati who became the wife of Brahma. So there's different orders, although the nomenclature looks the same. It's from the internal potency, the spiritual potency of Krishna. The name is used in this case, Saraswati. And so from that Saraswati came the Gopal mantra, or Madan Gopal mantra, which is one of the Gayatri mantras Brahma received. And he meditated, and after some time he then heard the flute song of Krishna, and from his mouth, the sound went in his ear, and out of his mouth came Kama Gayatri. And then in disciplic succession, those who are in Brahma's disciplic succession received those two Gayatris and some other ones too. But the gopis are not Brahmanas. They're Vaishnavas. They're more than Vaishnavas. They're perfected souls. But I'm curious, the language that Prabhupada may have used, that saying that the gopis, hearing the flute song of Krishna, they were chanting Gayatri mantra or something to that, whatever it says. I'd like to see it. You find it and let me know. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Do we know how many verses of Brahma Samhita in total?
No. There's, at least I'm unaware of anything other than what I said. There's 100 chapters. This is chapter 5 of 100 chapters. That's all I know. How many verses there are in the other? I don't know if anybody has seen any other than that one. And where's the information come? What's the transcendental source of information saying that there's 100 chapters? I don't have the answer to that either. But somewhere along the line, that's an understanding. Maybe it can, I don't know. Maybe so many maybes. Maybe from the Adi Keshava temple. Maybe so many maybes. Maybe there's some scholars that know of other parts that I don't know about.
In the 5th chapter, how many verses, Maharaj, total? In the 5th chapter, what we know?
62. A source that may have that answer is Brahma Vaivarta Purana.
Okay.
Brahma Vaivarta Purana makes reference to Brahma Samhita.
In the morning class, you had mentioned that one.
Yes. And I have copies of that text. There's translations. It's not the Sanskrit. But I'll go over it and see it before our class tomorrow. I'll see if I can find out what it says about the other 99 chapters. But I doubt it's going to say how many verses. Okay. Yes?
So Maharaj, this is regarding Srila Prabhupada's purport that you showed, where he says that we should all practice chanting some mantra every day, apart from the Hare Krishna mantra, so that even if one becomes animal, then they can, in the next life, then they can still remember.
They may.
They may.
Yeah.
Right. So Maharaj, my question is that when you hear the glories of the Hare Krishna mantra, we often hear that if one hears this mantra even once, then the human life in the next birth is secure. So then then the question comes like, why some devotees may become animals in the next life? And we hear all these stories that the devotees, great devotees, they fall down, they become animals in the next life. So how do you understand that, Maharaj?
those are two things. Those are exceptions, not rules. Every rule has an exception. And the principle is not just one time I chanted, so my human birth and next life is guaranteed. Supposing, now the case of Bharat is exception, it's not the rule, but because he stopped his devotional practices completely, full stop. And in his mind, he became attached to a deer. That was the consequence for him. But his remembrance of Krishna was throughout that form of life as a deer. And he remembered his previous life as well. And he didn't make the same mistake twice. So it's that's the exception. And the rule is what you stated. Svalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahatobhayat. This mahabhaya, Prabhupada's explanation is falling back down again into the lower species of life. That's mahabhaya. Because it's forgetfulness. With exception. Like Bharat Maharaj. Says rule, there's the exception to the rule. And aparad, deliberate aparad, supposing, hey, this is a good plan. Hare Krishna, then I do any damn thing because I'm going to get a human birth in my next life. That's offense. So that rule doesn't apply to those who make offense. Yes.
Guru Maharaj, as we hear in Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd chapter, all the incarnations are listed, and then we hear the Paribhasha Sutra. So some people have difficulty understanding. Like even if you show them, I have a friend who has difficulty specifically with that. So even when you show them the verse that this is what it says after listing all these incarnations, they're not ready to accept it. So what is that? Is it because they lack the faith?
Yes.
In believing what is?
Well, they have faith in something else. We invest faith in something. And sometimes people invest faith in their rational faculty. Yeah. And according to some people's rational faculty, if this is true, then that can't be true. They both can be true. Well, explain to me how both can be true. I just went through it. Krishna is the source, and he exists eternally in Goloka. And Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan Krishna, can appear through any way he wants to appear. He doesn't even need Mahavishnu, or Garbhodakshay Vishnu, or Shiradakshay Vishnu. He can just, presto, voila, bhavati, there he is. But he may choose to appear as an avatar of Vishnu. So this doesn't contradict that. Although for one who's relying strongly upon their empiric reasoning process, this is true, then that can't be true. But even empirically it can be true. What to speak of otherwise. There's two classic examples Prabhupada gives. Ask this friend of yours, what about the one that says the stool of an animal is impure and cow dung is pure? How do you deal with that? Ask your friend. because by analyzing cow dung, it has antiseptic properties. It's not only not filled with the kinds of things that animal stool is filled with, it has antiseptic properties. Now, how do you handle that one, my dear friend? Can they both be true? Or if this is true, then that's got to be not true. There's other examples, but yes, it's a matter of faith, but also faith can be verified. And then the next verification matter that Prabhupada would often go to in discussing this topic is the stalwart acharyas all accept. And here's the names, and here's the they accept. Krishna is the original personality of Godhead. So.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I had two questions. My first question was King Indra. You were mentioning that Gajendra in his previous life was King Indradyumna.
Yes.
Is it the same King Indradyumna as Lord Jagannath's pastimes?
No.
And then my second question is you were mentioning about the project you were undertaking of Brahma Samhita.
Yeah.
And I was just curious to know which one of all the 63 verses is your favorite?
The one that's my favorite, I have a favorite. Besides the Paribhasa Sutra, I say with two favorites. It's the verse, I think it's 57. It's the verse where Brahma says to Krishna, I have all this nice realization, now I got to go build the universe. So how am I going to keep this nice realization when I go to the office and build the universe? Practical. So there's a very nice answer, very lengthy description, because it's very pertinent and relevant to all of us, because we have stuff that we do every day. And how, if we do stuff every day, how are we going to keep our Krishna consciousness? And if we keep our Krishna consciousness, how are we going to do our stuff every day? How do you put the two together? Practical. He uses the Bhaktisiddhanta uses the term gona dharma. Now my understanding is gona dharma has the same root as guna, meaning involvement in matter. Jiva Goswami has a different term. I forget right now what that different term is, but it's the principle is the same. Having a connection with matter while maintaining spiritual consciousness. How do you maintain that? That's his question. And then Krishna gives a direct answer. Okay, I think we're done. Yes? Srila Prabhupada ki?
Jai.
Or Premanandi?